Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this is the long awaited video where I show you guys how I did my acrylic nails for the very first time. These are the nail files that I selected, but also are what came with my Young Nails kit. If you haven't seen my last video, check it out. I go into detail about everything that came within the kit. It has all that you need to start your nail, your acrylic nail journey, if I should say. So I'm just gonna give you guys a little background here before I explain what exactly I'm doing or why I'm doing what you see right here. So every nail file, or most nail files, all have a number, and usually they range from about 80 to as much as I think like 600 or something, or like 240. And what those numbers mean is the texture or the grit of the nail file. So every nail file usually has two sides, and they usually have numberings on them too. As you can see in the top right corner in blue, you see 150 right there on my gray nail file. So what that number means is just how rough or how smooth the nail file is. So the bigger the number on the nail file, the smoother the texture. The smaller the number, the rougher the texture. And so what that texture is called is a grit. G-R-I-T, a grit. So if that grit is rough, then it's really good for you to be able to, you know, get your shapes in order. And if it's smoother, you can use it to take off the shine, which is what I'm doing right here. So the nail file I'm using right here, if y'all caught that, it's a 180 nail file, meaning that the texture or the grit is a little more smoother and more gentle on my nails. So the first step when you're doing your acrylic nails is you want to remove the shininess off your nails, which is what I'm doing here. I probably did a little bit too much, but like I said, it was my first time, so you guys are literally learning along with me. So you want to take the nice, you know, clear, shiny surface that's naturally on your nails. You want to make it rough and basically dry, so that when you apply your acrylic powder and everything, it just works along very smoothly. So that's what you see me doing right here. So one thing I did forget to mention, I actually remove my cuticles before you even do this step. You always want to remove your cuticles and push your cuticles back. There's a couple things in the video that I did off camera just because, for one, like I said, this is my first time, so everything I'm doing right here is like fresh, first time. So y'all are literally learning along with me. And when it came to filing my nails, when the tips were on, I was bending my fingers every way I could because I really wanted to try to get my shape as nice or as straight as I could. So it caused me to be a little bit off the camera, so I just didn't include that in the video at all. And then you'll see me pick up my brush right here just to dust off any excess, you know, cuticle dust or anything. But yes, the first step before you even remove the shine off your nails is you want to push your cuticles back, not too strongly, not too aggressively, but just kind of gently push them back and cut them off if they need to. So next I'm going to use my BT Art Box nail tips to measure, if I should say, the tips that I'm going to be using. I did not use the one from Young Nails only because, as I mentioned in my older video, it was more curved and I wasn't sure if I wanted to deal with something like that. So I wanted something more straighter and possibly maybe easier to file. I was struggling to open this box and there we go. Okay, we got it? Okay. All right, we got it. So yes, you always want to make sure first, before you start gluing anything on, measure your nail tips. You never want your nail tips to be smaller than the side walls of your nails or bigger. If it's too small, what's going to happen is it's going to pop off or your nail's going to break easier. And if it's too big, well, it's just not going to fit right and it's not going to look right. If you do find a tip that does fit you almost right, but is a little bit big on the sides, you can just grab your nail file and kind of chisel it down a little bit, file it down to make it more fitting with your nails. So that's the best way to go about it. Remember to never use a nail tip that does not fit exactly to the side walls of your nails. Something else I also realized that these nail tips have little line ticks or something that you can actually feel underneath the nail, and so it'll help you know basically how far to push back the nail tip. I hope that makes sense, because I'm thinking, how far am I, like at what point do I know the nail tip is supposed to fit? But there's little like tick marks, if you can tell, there's little tick marks on the inside of the nail tip that show you how far the nail tip needs to actually fit on your nail. So, and you can actually feel it on your nail, like where it's supposed to be placed. So that's a good indicator too, to help you know, okay, like, you know, my nail tip doesn't go all the way back to my cuticle, it's just in the front, just at the tip of my nail, and it helps fit more comfortably on the nail, and it just makes everything more easier. The nail tips that I'm going to be using. I made sure that they fit my nails precisely, and at the top of each tip there are also numbers on them, so it'll help you know to use the same thing for your opposite hand. Okay, so your next step is to apply the brush on glue onto your nail tip, and I will be showing that as well. However, I did realize that the tip that I chose for my pinky was a little bit bigger, so I had to file it at the bottom a little bit. I don't know if y'all can tell. Do you see the line at the top where I'm trying to line it up with the edge of my nail? That's what I'm talking about. Like, it sits comfortably on the edge of your nail, and that shows you exactly where to place your tip. And right here, I did a terrible job recording and showing you guys what I was doing. Like I said, this was my first time and it was a struggle, but I was filing the bottom of my tip just a little bit, just so it could fit better with my. Once that worked out really well, I went ahead and applied the glue. But guys, I made a mistake. Do not apply the glue. I mean, you can, but I would say don't apply the glue directly onto your nail. Just apply it onto the tip, because if you apply it on your nail, you might be putting more than you need, and it might just end up getting all over your skin, and it could be messy. So once again, make sure that before you put on each tip, the tips are fitting on the side walls of your nails precisely. And if not, you know, file it down a little bit and adjust it how it needs to be. So I'm showing you guys right here how to actually apply the tip to avoid having air bubbles in them. So I think this is a really bad angle, but when you're applying your tip, you want to kind of have your tip facing down and with the bottom of the tip facing up. and then you kind of slowly tilt it and put it on top of your nail and kind of like push it, press it on. That way it just eradicates all the air bubbles. And when you do that, you'll actually see through the plastic of the tip of the glue spreading onto the edge of your nail. So that is one of the most effective ways of applying your tip so that you do not have air bubbles and it can look nice and clean. For this next part, I did mine a little differently. I went ahead and trimmed off any excess length off of the tips on one hand before doing it to the other hand. Most people probably would do it differently. They would probably glue all the tips on both hands first and then trim off any excess length, but I decided to do it one hand at a time, only because once again this was my first time and I wanted to make sure that I had the desired length on one hand and I could match it up to the other, if that makes sense. And also I just thought it might be easier holding the nail trimmer or the nail clipper with my bare hands versus having super long nails on them first. Okay, so now it is time to file, and I grabbed the 180 nail file once again, the same one that I used to buff out my natural nails. I used this to file over the tips and my natural nails again. And this step is really important, guys, because you want to be able to blend the tips to your natural nails. When you glue the tips onto your nails, there's like a little hump or like a bump, obviously because that's where the tip is added onto it, but you want to try to shave it down and flatten that out as much as possible so that it blends and looks really nice and smooth and creates a really good base for your acrylic to lay on top. So for this part, I'm actually beginning to file the tips into the shape that I wanted, which is why I grabbed the 100 nail file. And as I mentioned earlier, 80 to 100 is the best type of file to use to shape your tips because the grit is coarser and is better compatible with the plastic of the tips. I was trying to go for a tapered square. But this was kind of a fail, and I'm so sorry, guys. I know a lot of the stuff I was doing had really bad camera angles. Like, I was off camera for it and I had to remind myself to bring my hand under the camera, so I'm sorry that it doesn't have the best view. But this was the point where, like, moving forward, I ended up just doing a lot of the filing off camera, and that was like a whole extra other hour and a half. Yes, guys, and that was like, I think, one hand. Literally, like, one hand took me about over like 30-40 minutes before I moved to the next one. Or yeah, it was just a lot of work, and it was just gonna be way too much to record, so I did that off camera, and it was stressful. My shape did not come out the way I necessarily wanted them to, but I worked with what I had, because listen, did not finish this until like 5 in the morning. Eventually I was done with this at like 5, yeah, like 4 or 5 in the morning. So at this point, I had filed both hands off camera. This is what I was mentioning, that it took me about an hour. The shape was still not exactly what I wanted to, but considering it being my first time, I was tired and ready to be done. So I went with the outcome, which wasn't too bad, but you know, it wasn't a tapered square. The colors I used here was the core pink and the regular white. Please excuse my ashy fingers, but this is the part where I actually start applying the acrylic. And the brush, you have to kind of break the brush, if that makes sense, because it comes with product already on it that gives the brush its shape, but you need to dip it in monomer so you can kind of like loosen up the product and basically break into your brush. So this part might be a little tricky to understand because of the way my camera is angled, but you see me keep dipping my brush into the monomer, and what I'm doing is basically squeezing out any excess that I do not need. Once you're dipping your brush, you have to angle the brush at a 45-degree angle, so not straight down like a 90-degree angle, and not too sideways either, because you want to be able to pick up product at the tip of your brush. This is one of the most crucial and most important things you have to know once you're doing your own acrylic nails, because you want to pick up the perfect bead. And what the perfect bead is the perfect monomer to acrylic powder ratio that you are going to be able to pick up to create that circular shape piece of acrylic that is placed upon your nail and helps you mold the acrylic over your nail to give the shape that you want. But for me, I was struggling because I did not know how to do this. My bead was too liquidy. It can be too dry, it can be too liquidy, and it's not gonna help you create that perfect acrylic to smooth over your tip and over your nail. And I completely missed a step here because I was supposed to put a dehydrator or the protein bond for young nails over my natural nails. What that does is basically really just set your natural nails so that the acrylic can stick better and prevent lifting. But because I did not put that on, I think like a week or so later after I finished my nails, it started lifting and this baby had to come off. But yes, when you are practicing doing your acrylics, you might want to practice how to pick up beads. The little piece of acrylic that you see at the tip of my brush, it's so important, the ratio of monomer to acrylic, because you really want to nail that down. Like, that's what helps you basically have the best application. But for me, my acrylics were just way too watery. You see, it's like, it looks like gel polish. It shouldn't really look too watery like that. So this was just a terrible, terrible application. And if you're wondering why I'm applying from the tip first, there is a 3-step process to how you apply your acrylic, which is starting from the very top to the center, which is what we call the apex, or where the tip of the nail joins your natural nail and then the bottom close to your cuticle. But I was trying to create a gradient effect, like a gradient French tip. I don't know why I decided to do this for my very first time. That's probably why I didn't finish this till like 5 in the morning. I probably should have just done one simple color. But what I should have done was really blend out where the part of the acrylic that covers over where my real nail and the tip actually meet. This will be the last finger that you guys will see me working on. I basically repeated this step for the rest of my other nails. It was getting too late and I was so tired. Alrighty y'all, so you guys saw my nails. This is how they turned out. I don't know if y'all can tell, but that's how, and I'm gonna post pictures at the end. They look a lot better afar than they look up close. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. It looks a lot better afar than it does look up close for sure. There's still like some leftover acrylic and stuff around my nails that I still need to clean off, and a lot of the stuff that I did was off camera. So after I recorded whatever I did for this video, y'all, my fingers started cramping. I was having a moment. I was feeling claustrophobic. I was feeling so many different things at once. I was just like, get this thing off me. Like, my fingers are cramping. I could just feel it cramping just talking about it. I went in back and filed the mess out of this, and some parts are a little bit too thin. Like, some of my nails are too thin, so you can see my actual nail past the tips that I added, but I kind of went over that with acrylic, so we're not gonna get too close to that. I commend nail artists doing my left hand with, or I'm sorry, doing my right hand with my non-dominant hand was surprisingly easier, not for filing, but when it came to applying the acrylic, surprisingly, like, this hand, I feel like, turned out a lot better than this hand, right? And the whole idea was to try and do a gradient French tip, but I realized that was not the case. So I'm gonna have to watch a lot more videos to try to master that, and I might just end up going over this with regular nail polish because it's not, you know. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on my next one.